welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. Today we are talking about the new Tom Ford Quad in metallic denim. This is number 32. This is made in Italy. It is the wet dry formula and it's 6 grams or 0.21 ounces. Let's start off with some swatches. So here are the 4 shades. You can see how soft and light they are dry. Let me show you those wet as well. So here they are wet, and you can see how much richer and more pigmented they are wet versus dry. Look at that. I mean, they are really pretty. All right, so let's take a look at the shades here. So this gold shade is going to be the first shade in the palette, and it's really more of a topper. You have more of this gold sparkle. It doesn't have a lot of pigment on its own. When you use it wet, it does create a more opaque shade. You can use it on its own, but it's still, in my opinion, not great on its own. I think it's really best as a topper shade. Then this second shade here, so this would be the top right, this is like a taupe. So it's really beautiful, soft brown with a little bit of some slightly cool undertones. So it's a little taupey, and you can see that it is metallic. All of these shades have some metallic and sparkle in them. And then bottom left, we have the blue shade here. And you can see when you use it dry that it really has more of that washed denim look to it. It's softer, it's more sheer. It's almost like, is it blue, is it gray? And then when you make that wet, it's really much more of a teal blue shade. Very, very beautiful. And then the black is actually a really nice standout. You can see you've got this black with tons and tons of sparkle. I actually feel like, I don't know if it's just because of the contrast between the sparkle and the black, but it looks more sparkly than the other shades. Look at it black. It really looks like, you know, what you would see like a midnight sky with sparkling stars everywhere if you're like out in the country or something. It's just stunning. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you some looks. We've got some wet and some dry applications, and then we'll come back for some comparisons. All right, so we are going to start off with this shade here. This is the top right-hand shade, and I'm using the Omnia Gold crease brush. We're going to get a little bit of this on and put this in here. I may have a little bit of stray glitter on my face. That is not from the shadow. Okay, very, very soft. I'm actually gonna go ahead and take the Rephr 14 and go into the black here. And I'm going to get just a tiny bit on the tip here and kind of add that into the targeted portion of the crease. And just kind of, I'm gonna blend that out in a minute. All right, so I'm going back in with this Omnia Gold, and I don't have any shadow on it. I'm just gonna kind of softly blend the 2 shades together here. Okay, there we go. So it's very soft, but there is some depth there, and it's not super noticeable, but it makes a difference, if that makes sense. You know, I think we're actually gonna go into these 3 shades, and let's go ahead and do something more like neutral glam. So I'm gonna take the black shade. This is the Sonia G Worker 3. We're gonna put this here, and you can see that this shade does have sparkle to it. Oh, look at that as you blend that out. Do you see that? Like, that's cool. All right, so that is the black very softly. You can see I did get fallout from this shade here. And I wiped off the brush, and I'm just gonna kind of brush this out a little bit, just to kind of soften those edges. And then wiping off the brush, I'm gonna go into this top gold shade and put that with it. And let's see how much of a true topper this is. Okay, so it is fairly sheer. I thought it might be a little bit more opaque than it is, but it really is more of just like a gold sparkly topper. Very pretty though. Now we're gonna do the same thing on the other eye, wet. I'm using the same brush. I just dampened it with some of the Evian spray water, and I'm gonna go ahead. Wow, look at this black shade wet. Oh my goodness, that looks like, you know, a celestial night. That is incredible. You could just wear that all over. That's really, I mean, I don't even know how to convey how beautiful that is in person. Just kind of feathering these edges a little bit, but I'm trying not to make it too pigmented, so I'm barely touching. Wow, that shade is stunning. Okay, I'm gonna wipe this off and then we'll go in with the gold. All right, so wiped that off, and now just getting the gold topper shade here. Let's see how this works wet. I mean, there's a little bit of opacity to this shade, but honestly, it's not really all that significant. It does kind of blur a bit of the black. I mean, it's a very pretty look, but I prefer the black without the topper on it. But this kind of mattifies it a little bit. You know, it's more shimmery, just the black, and now adding this topper on it kind of just dampened that spirit a little bit. So those are the two differences there. Let me just show you this from a distance. So here are the two eyes from a distance. I have to say, you could create a super glam look with this. Very stunning black shade. I mean, the black is definitely the standout here, and I mean, with this particular look. All right, this time around, we're gonna focus more on the brown and the blue here. I personally cannot wait to see the blue. That's why I bought this palette. We're gonna start off with this brown though also. This is the Sonia G Soft Shader, and you can see the sparkle here on the brush. I do have a little residual sparkle from the last look. I mean, this brown shade here is stunning just on its own. Look at that. You can see that the satin sheen on this actually makes it look wet. That's really nice. And then I'm just gonna go straight into the blue. I did wipe off the brush, and we're gonna put this here. So look, you can get that really soft and sheer. And then I'm taking the Omnia Gold into the same brown, the brown here that we used in the beginning, and I'm gonna kind of buff that in the crease a bit. There we go. And that's gonna be it. Now, I have to say, I can see why they call this the denim palette, because, you know, this, it looks so much more, like so much deeper, just going with more blue here. In the pan, I thought this blue would be deeper, but look how softly and sheerly this can actually go on. It's really more like worn denim. Let's do the same thing wet and see if it's more pigmented. All right, so here is the brown. And you can see that that is definitely gonna be richer. You can see a lot more of that sparkle. I mean, using this wet and seeing the impact of the sparkle in these different shades, it really reminds me more of like a midnight sky. So yeah, I think that is beautiful. I love that color. I love the sparkle in there. All right, so re-dampen the brush. We're going into the blue, and let's see if this becomes more pigmented. I'm sure it will be, but even so, it's more of a steel blue than I thought it was gonna be when I saw the initial pictures. Sometimes the initial pictures made it look more like a more teal blue, but you can see when you rub this out, it's actually not even that bright of a blue. People who are afraid of blue eyeshadow probably won't have any issue with this. I mean, it's really more of a soft denim shade. So wet versus dry. And let me show you from a distance. Okay, so again, we got dry versus wet. I'd love to know whether you prefer the dry or the wet application. So this time what I want to do is more of a vertical gradient. So I want to have the black closer to the lash line move into the blue, and then the brown kind of at the top. So we're gonna layer these shades. I'm using the Chikuhodo Z11, and this is just a bit of the brown. I'm gonna put this here. And you can see how light that is. All right, and we're just gonna deepen that up just a touch with a little tiny touch of the black. Kind of blend it here, more on the outside here. So I wiped off the brush so I can kind of blend that a little bit better. And I'm just gonna add a little bit more of the brown on top of that because I do just wanna kind of get a little depth there, but I don't really wanna see the black. And then we're gonna go in with this is Chikuhodo KZ6. I'm gonna go in with the blue, and I'm gonna kind of put this all over here. And you can see how soft and sheer this blue actually is. Actually, I want to get that a little darker, so let me switch brushes. So I'm going with this Nude Builder 2. This is undyed goat, so it's a little bit firmer, and because it does have shorter bristles, it's a little bit firmer, so it's going to give me a little bit more impact from this shade. So there we go. I mean, just using that blue all over, you can have a really soft denim look. I mean, it's a very apt description, but we're gonna go ahead and I'm going to use this brush into the black shade, and I'm just getting it on, not the tip here, but the top part of the flat edge. And we're gonna put this here, like along the lash line, but in a very thick line. This really isn't doing what I thought it would. The colors just, you know, they're blending a little bit more than I thought. They're too soft, if that makes sense. So I am going to go over this wet. Okay, back with this Builder 2, going into the blue, wet. I'm gonna put this all over. A little bit more here. And I hope it is helpful to see these applications wet and dry. Please let me know what you think down below in the comments. I mean, just look at that impact there. And then I re-dampened this, again, going into the black now, and just getting it on the tips here. We're gonna just kind of brush this along the upper lash line. So you can see more of that like starlight, because I feel like it's a little bit more shimmery than the other shades. It's a little more maybe multicolor shimmer, although it really looks like the shimmer is silver, but I don't know, the effect it has is just a little different. So there's that, just taking the brush and just kind of dabbing here. You can see the mess I kind of have. There is definitely fallout with all of these shades. Okay, so those are the lids done. I'm just gonna go ahead and go back in with I'm actually gonna take the Omnia Gold crease brush that I used in one of the earlier looks. Just kind of blend that crease a little bit. I didn't wanna go back in with the Z11 because it's a little bit too soft. So I'm taking the gold and I'm gonna go into this topper shade, and I'm gonna blend this in the crease and all the way up to the brow, just very lightly. And going back in with the Builder 2, I did not re-wet the brush, but it's not completely dry from before. Just gonna kind of fill in that lid space again. I'm gonna clean up around these edges, and then we'll do the lower lash line and some black eyeliner. All right, and then for the lower lash line, I'm taking the Chikuhodo T8 in the blue. I'm just twirling the tip in there, and we're gonna put this down here. All right, wiping that off, and I'm gonna roll this into the gold. I'm gonna put this on the inner corner here. And then for eyeliner, I'm gonna try to do a little bit of a wing with the Tom Ford. This is the eye defining pen and it only comes in black. So I'm gonna do this and then I will be right back. So this is the final look up close and let me show you from a distance. So this is the final look from a distance. I have on the Westman Atelier foundation and I had a little bit of the Westman Atelier Petal Blush on still from before, but I added some Dew because most of that went away when I was doing the cleanup. And then on my lips, I have the Tom Ford lip gloss in number 19 Smoked Glass. I believe it's a discontinued color. You can still find it around. It is my favorite. So I feel like this eye look looks great with berry tones, but because I didn't want anything overpowering, I went with a softer cream blush that could blend out well and a gloss instead of a lipstick. And I think it is strong enough to hold up to the pigmented shades, but still soft enough not to distract from the eyes. All right, so I hope that was helpful. I don't have a ton of comparisons here, but let's start off with this Soleil quad. This is number 1, Soleil Neige. And I'm gonna go ahead and swatch this whole palette here. You can see that the color story is similar. Okay, and let's take a look here. You can see that the brown shade is going to be warmer. It's also a little bit softer. There's a little bit more golden tones to it. This first shade here is really more of a white frosty shade than what we have in Denim. And the blue shade here is a little bit, there's actually more blue in it during the dry application. And the black, you can see it has a tiny bit of shimmer and there's a little bit more of a browner base to it compared to this one. Let's take a look at these wet. So these are the 3 shades aside from the topper shade, the white frosty shade. So these are them wet. You can see more of a pronounced difference in the blacks. You can definitely see that this is gonna have, it's a warmer black and there's less sparkle. The blue you can see is more teal and this one here is more navy in the Soleil Neige quad. And the taupey shade, you can see the warmth compared to the Denim quad. Now, another one that I had that's kind of similar, this is the Double Indemnity quad. And all of these shades are not really going to match up. It's really gonna be the black one that is most similar. But let's go ahead and take a look at these 4 here anyway. We'll look at these dry. So again, you can see this one's frosty. It's a little bit more golden than the Soleil Neige, but definitely not as gold as what we have in Denim. We actually have more of an olive khaki green instead here. And then this brown is gonna be warm and it's not as metallic as the brown in the Denim. You can see this has much more red in it. And then this is the black. So let's look at the black wet. So here is the black wet. We're gonna squeeze that right here. And you can see that those blacks are going to be much more similar. So the one in Double Indemnity actually slightly cooler looking than that in the Denim quad, but they're pretty close and the sparkliness is very similar. And then this is the Tom Ford Massa Gate Face and Eye palette. These shades don't really go, but I just want to show you what the blue looks like in comparison. And we're just gonna put that right here. So you can see it's gonna be much brighter. It's a completely different tone, but I just wanted to show you, how they compare. And then last up, we have the Dior Denim Quad. And I just wanted to compare these because, well, they're blue and they both have the name Denim. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. So first, these are the 2 top shades. You can see that they are not going to match. We've got more of this like greenish teal and this brighter blue that's actually more similar to that in the Moss Agate palette. And then this is the middle shade. I'm gonna put this up here next to the topper. You can see that the tones of those are very similar, but this is going to be a satin versus more of a topper here. So you get similar tones, but you get more opacity with the Dior. And then the last 2 are the bottom shades here. Let's put them down here with the wet because they are more pigmented. So this is more of a teal, this is more of a navy. And you can see that the denim when wet is a little bit more blue than the teal shade here, but not as blue as this. It's not even really, it's maybe more like an 80% mix of the teal with 20% of the blue kind of mixed into it to get that same color wet. And these are all the comparisons I have. So I hope that was helpful. And just to kind of give you guys my thoughts on this palette, you know, it's probably not too much of a surprise, but I love this palette. So I love blues, greens, and purples on my eyes. They are ones I really like. I have to say, I don't really like this palette so much dry. Typically with the wet dry formula from Tom Ford, I prefer them dry. I like the softness of them. I like the shimmer. And a lot of times when you make them wet, they're just too frosty. But this one dry, it's a little bit lackluster. I like the black dry. I like the brown dry. You know, you can get a really nice neutral, sophisticated look with that. But I feel like the blue doesn't have much of an impact dry. I mean, you can see how soft that is. It actually looks more gray, more like a steel blue instead. And I think that's a nice color and everything, but it's not why I bought the palette. So we're using it wet. However, I get the colors that I want from this palette, and I just think it is gorgeous. You know, I have to say I thought the blue would be my favorite shade, but it's actually the black. I think the black just has so much impact, and the sparkle on there is stunning. Again, it's very similar to that in the Double Indemnity. When you use those wet, you're gonna get kind of the same effect there, but I like pairing it with the blue. So actually, I love all of the shade. Well, I don't love the gold here. I just feel like it's best as a topper, but it's not a great topper, if that makes sense, because I did think it kind of mattified the look a little bit, and you know, it's just not my favorite. But you know, it's totally fine. I do love these three shades. Now, as for performance, you know, they perform like other wet dry shadows because these shades are a little bit darker and more pigmented. I have to say the fallout is more noticeable with these, and I did get a little bit more fallout with this palette than what I usually get. A lot of that has to do with the amount of sparkle and shimmer in these. All of these shades have sparkle and shimmer, so it is easier to get more fallout with those. Obviously, using it wet, you should have less fallout, less sparkle, especially depending on what you use. I just used water, but you use something like MAC Fix Plus or Inglot Duraline, or you know, any sort of mixing medium or glitter glue or something like that. That would probably be a good idea with these shadows. Overall, I have to say they are gorgeous, and I really liked the looks that I created with this. I think it's really dramatic if you go wet, really soft and sheer if you go light, and I will probably wear it both ways. So although I love the impact of the wet, and that's probably my favorite way, when I'm looking for a softer look, I do really like the idea of having kind of that washed denim look on my eyes. So for me, I think this is going to be a great palette for the fall. Out of the two that have come out, we've got the Rose Prisma and this metallic denim. I feel like this one seems more fall-like to me, whereas the Rose Prisma is more spring-summer. So just something to note, but I really, really like this, and I feel like this more dramatic eye has made my eyes look a little bit bigger. So thank you so much. I'd love to know what you guys think about these palettes. If there are any additional comparisons that you would like to see, please let me know, and I will try to include those in an update video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will see you very soon. Have a great day.